Hello again, this is Doc Rotten with Gruesome Magazine and Horror News Radio. Joining me tonight is the one and only Paul Cardullo. He is here to talk about Lilith's Awakening, which we caught at the GenreBlast Film Festival here recently. Paul, how you doing, bud?
Pretty good. How you doing, Doc?
Doing great. Before we get into Lilith's Awakening, tell us about GenreBlast.
Okay, so GenreBlast is a film festival held yearly in Northern Virginia. This was their second year, and the second year that you and I attended as well. And this year they moved to the wonderful venue of the Alamo Draft House in Winchester, Virginia. And what separates this film festival is it celebrates genre films as a whole. So you have horror movies, you've got sci-fi, you've got comedies, you've got WTF, goodness knows what some of those films are. But they all fit together really well, and a lot of the filmmakers show up, so it's really kind of neat. So you really get to mingle with the people making the films and have some really neat Q&As and some panels there as well.
And tonight's offering is Lilith's Awakening, which is probably one of the few straight-up horror films of the weekend. So tell us a little bit about what Lilith's Awakening is actually about.
Yeah, Lilith's Awakening is, like you said, it's primarily a horror film. It's this beautifully shot black and white film about a woman who basically she's in an unhappy marriage. She has an encounter with his co-worker, as it were, but she ends up she's supposed to meet him in the woods for something illicit, but she meets something other. And it's not really a spoiler to say this is essentially a vampire film. But you have a little bit of play with the genders of some of the characters, and it's this beautifully shot, very deliberately paced film. The one of the things you would notice about it also is that there's a lot of Dracula references. The main character's name is Lucy. Her husband, boyfriend is Jonathan. She works at, I think it's Helsing's, or it might be Van Helsing's is the name of the gas station she works at. There's a character named Renfeld. So you have those Dracula references strewn throughout.
Now, how important is the black and white to the film?
I think it's really important. It just gives it this kind of very dreamlike quality to it. It's beautifully shot. Like I said, it's just the very long takes. It just kind of adds this kind of beauty to it. It gives it very much a dreamlike quality to the whole film. Someone at the film kind of likened it to A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, which was a couple years ago. But the difference there is this has less. There's still humor in this, but not nearly as much as the humor that was in A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. But I think it'd be an interesting kind of companion piece to that.
Now, is there horror in this horror film?
Well, I mean, there's vampires and there's bloodletting, so it's definitely there, but it's more subdued. It's more of almost a dream-like film.
All right, well, let's give us your score, 1 to 5, and your favorite scene.
So I'd give it a good solid 3.5, like a 3.75, I'd say, because it's very beautifully shot, but it is very deliberately paced. And I think your score a person's score may range above or below that depending upon the mood they're in or their feeling towards films of that nature. But that ties in with my favorite scene, which was the scene where the vampire is feeding on the character. It is very slow and long and drawn out, but really kind of wonderfully so. I mean, if you're draining somebody of blood, it's going to take a while. And it's just this very kind of just beautiful, slow shot and very deliberate. It's really kind of neat. If you're in the mood for something kind of quiet and almost dreamlike, this would be kind of a neat one to check out.
Well, that sounds great. So I take it you have to get past the pacing, though.
If you're not in the mood for a slower paced film, then maybe you might want to check out something else and come back to this at a time when you are.
All right, Paul. Thank you very much for another great review. Let's say good night.
Good night.
Be sure to visit GruesomeMagazine.com to listen to the other gruesome podcasts, Hard News Radio, and Decades of Horror. Also check out the Gruesome Magazine Quarterly, available in digital and print on demand format.